Welcome to The Aligned Path with Glenn Pankhurst, here on News for the Soul. I'm an intuitive life alignment coach, and I help people notice the patterns they can't quite see in themselves yet, the quiet, repeating ones that keep bringing the same unwanted experiences back around. This work is about bringing those patterns into the light, gently, so you can soften them and move towards more alignment, more ease, and a better feeling flow in your everyday life. If you'd like a simple place to begin, there's a free 30-day practice waiting for you at walkthealignedpath.com. So settle in, get comfortable. Let me start with a few questions. Have you ever decided what someone meant before they'd even finished speaking? Have you ever felt irritated because someone just wasn't getting something that seems so obvious to you? Have you ever had someone give you feedback and felt yourself start building your defense before they'd even finished the sentence? Or said no to something so fast that later you wondered, was that my intuition, or was that an old fear wearing my intuition's clothes? Here's one more, and this one's a little uncomfortable the first time you see it. Have you ever asked for more connection, more opportunity, more clients, more support, while quietly feeling irritated by the very people that might come through? Sit with that one for a second, because it points to something we're going to spend this hour on. Sometimes the pattern isn't what happened. Sometimes the pattern is the meaning we give to what happened. Someone doesn't reply, and we decide they're upset with us. Someone asks the same question twice, and we decide they're not trying. Someone offers feedback, and we decide they don't value us. Something we wanted doesn't show up on time, and we decide life isn't working. And those meanings arrive fast. They feel so much like plain facts that we rarely stop to question them. We don't experience them as a choice. We experience them as simply the truth of what just happened. But most of the time, that meaning isn't some pure piece of guidance dropping in. It's an old thought, a practice one, something showing up right on cue, the way it always has. And if we don't catch it, we follow it. We focus there. We feel there. And how we feel when we focus on something, that's our point of attraction. Now, I want to say something clearly before we go any further, because it matters. I do believe we create our reality, all of it, the good, the beautiful, the frustrating, the repeating stuff we wish would just stop showing up. But creating is not the same as being to blame. Almost none of us are walking around consciously choosing the unwanted things. We're running thoughts we picked up years ago. We're carrying beliefs that became normal so long ago we stopped even noticing them. We're focusing in ways we don't realize we're focusing, and then life reflects those patterns back. When I first really saw this in my own life, I saw that I was the common denominator in every room I walked into. And here's the important part. That didn't shame me, it freed me. Because if I was the one bringing the energy, then I was the one who could change it. So this isn't about blame. It's about finally seeing what's been running in your focus, in your feelings, in your expectation. So that from there, you can choose on purpose. And that's what I want to do today. Not as a theory, not as a concept floating in the air. I want to show you what this looked like in my actual life. Because I carried a pattern for years. I became the one who had to explain, to translate, to fix, to get people to see what they couldn't see. And if they didn't see it, I made that mean something about me. That pattern showed up everywhere, in my relationships, my friendships, my work, and eventually right in the middle of the business I was building. Let me lay the foundation, because the rest of the episode rests on it. Your point of attraction is whatever you're giving your attention to, and more than that, how you feel while you're giving it. That's it. Focus, and the feeling underneath the focus. Every subject in your life is like a stick. It's got a wanted end and an unwanted end. Money has both ends. Relationships have both ends. Work, health, your business, both ends. Even one single person in your life has both ends. You can focus on what's irritating about them, what they're not getting, what they keep doing, how they always seem to let you down, or you can focus on what else is also true. Maybe they're trying. Maybe they're doing the best they can from where they're standing. Maybe they're just not ready yet. Maybe the way you're explaining it isn't the way they can hear it. Same person, same stick, different end. And you always know which end you're on by how it feels. If it feels tight, heavy, urgent, resentful, you're focused towards the unwanted end. If it feels lighter, softer, clearer, more open, you're moving towards the wanted end. That feeling is not random, it's guidance. Law of attraction is simply responding to it, nothing else. Not to the words you say, not to the affirmation you wrote in your journal, not to the version of yourself you'd like to be. The universe hears what you mean, not what you say. It hears the tone underneath, the thing actually vibrating in you on the subject. And here's something I find genuinely reassuring. Every time you live something unwanted, you launch a desire in that same moment. You can't help it. The contrast fires it off for you. And the bigger part of you, your inner being, your source, your higher self, whatever word feels right, instantly becomes the vibration of that wanted version. It doesn't argue with it. It doesn't doubt it. It doesn't stand next to you staring at what's wrong. It just becomes the wanted and holds that frequency steadily the whole time. So the wanted version of what you're asking for already exists. Alignment is just you lining up with it. Misalignment is you facing the other way. And your emotions are the needle, telling you which way you're facing right now. Now here's something about that needle that took me a while to really understand. You can't leap from the bottom of the scale to the top in one jump. If you're sitting in fear, you can't just decide to feel joy and make it stick. Your system doesn't believe it, and neither does the universe. But you can always reach for the next step up. Out of despair, even anger could feel like relief. Out of anger, frustration can feel like relief. Out of frustration, a little hope can feel like relief. And relief is the marker. Relief is how you know you've turned, even slightly, toward the wanted end. And the reassuring part is this. You already know how to do this. Think of a subject in your life that feels easy, something you're naturally good at, something that never ties you in knots. Notice how light your thinking is there, how little you argue with yourself about it. You just expect it to go well, so it usually does. That ease, that's alignment. You're not learning some brand new skill today. You're learning to bring that same ease to the subjects that have been harder. Now, thoughts have momentum. I think of them like trains. If you've been thinking a certain thought for years, that train is moving fast. It's got weight behind it. You can't slam it into reverse in a single second. And even if you could, it would be jarring because you're riding inside it. So this work was never about forcing a positive thought on top of a heavy one. That doesn't fool anybody, least of all the universe. It's about easing your attention off the unwanted thought, letting that momentum slow, and reaching, gently, for the next thought that feels even slightly better, and that you can actually believe. Not the perfect thought, not the most spiritual sounding thought, the honest next one. Because the moment you find a thought with a little more relief in it, a new train starts to move, and that one can carry you somewhere different. And this, by the way, is how a belief gets built in the first place. A thought you keep thinking gathers momentum until one day it hardens into a belief. And an expectation is really just a belief, something you practice so long you stop questioning whether it's true. You assume it's what happens. That's why your reaction is so useful. It shows you the expectation you didn't even know you were holding. So when something happens, the practice isn't to instantly decide what it means and take off running with that meaning. The practice is to pause and get honest. What am I focused on right now? How does it feel as I focus there? What meaning am I handing this? Is that actually true, or is it just familiar? What else is also true? And where's the wanted end of the stick? That pause is the whole doorway, and that's exactly where my story starts. When I was young, I ended up in a role that was far too big for a child. In my own mind, I became responsible for helping someone close to me see what they couldn't see. I'm not going to lay out all the private details, because the details aren't really the point. The pattern is. There was someone close to me who often couldn't see a situation clearly from where they were standing. Not because anything was wrong with them, they just couldn't see it from there. And somehow I became the one who tried to help them see. I'd explain, I'd translate, I'd find another angle, I'd try to make it land. And when it didn't land, I didn't think, they're not ready, or they can't take this in right now. I made it mean something about me. I made it my problem to solve. That's a lot for a child to carry. Because when you're young, you don't understand that everyone has their own inner being, their own guidance, their own timing. You just feel the pressure. You feel that if you could only find the right words, maybe everything would be okay. Maybe no one would get hurt. Maybe the tension in the room would finally settle. And if you can pull that off even once, people start to rely on it. You become the capable one, the translator, the one who can get through. And here's the part that makes the whole thing so sticky. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you do find the words. Sometimes something shifts, and the room settles. And because it works sometimes, you start to believe the role is yours. You start believing other people's understanding is your responsibility. You start believing that if they don't get it, you haven't done enough. That's how an ability quietly turns into a job. And then the job turns into an identity. That was the pattern I carried for years. I got very good at seeing what was happening under the surface. I could read people. I could read a room. I could feel the thing nobody was saying. And I still value that. I'm not throwing that part away. The ability was never the problem. The problem was the responsibility I bolted onto it. Offering someone a clearer view, that's light. Being responsible for whether they take it in, that's heavy. And for a long time, I couldn't tell those two apart. So whenever someone couldn't see what I could see, something old switched on. I have to make them see this. I have to explain it better. I have to keep going until it lands. And if it doesn't land, what does that say about me? That's where the exhaustion came from. Not from helping. Helping when I'm alone feels wonderful. I love it. The trouble was, I wasn't just offering help. I was taking on their understanding as if it were mine to produce. I'd over-explain. I'd say the same thing 5 different ways. I'd push past the point where it was useful, and then quietly resent that I had to. I cared, but I was caring in the wrong direction. I made myself responsible for a result that was never mine to control. The exhaustion came from needing the other person to arrive somewhere before I could feel okay. My peace had a condition on it. If they got it, I could relax. If they didn't, I'd made it mean I'd failed. And any time your peace depends on someone else changing first, you've handed your power across the table without meaning to. That's not freedom, that's attachment. And attachment is sneaky, because it doesn't always feel needy. Sometimes it feels like responsibility. Sometimes it feels like urgency. Sometimes it feels like, if I don't get them to understand this, something's going to go wrong. Carry that long enough and it just feels normal. You stop noticing you're doing it. But underneath, the other person's understanding has quietly become the price of your peace. Maybe you know this role. Maybe you were the capable one too. The mediator, the calm one, the one people came to when things got tense. The one who could see both sides and tried to soften the room. And maybe, even now, when someone doesn't understand, you feel that old weight rise up. Not as a sentence in your head, as a pressure, a tightening, a quiet, if I don't make them see it, no one will. That's the pattern. And the moment you can see it, you're already not fully inside it anymore. There came a point where I couldn't keep doing it. I had very little left to give, and the old dynamic showed up one more time. The familiar pull was right there. Explain it, fix it, make them see, carry the understanding, carry the relationship, carry the outcome. And something in me just said, no more. Not from cruelty, not from punishment, not from wanting anyone to suffer. I simply saw that as long as I kept showing up as the fixer, the pattern had everything it needed to keep running. So I stepped back. And it wasn't only a physical step back, it was an energetic one. I had to put down the belief that another person's awareness was my job. I had to forgive myself for carrying something that was never mine to carry in the first place. I had to forgive myself for the resentment that had built up while I carried it. And eventually, I had to forgive the other person too. Not as a performance, not because forgiveness sounds nice and spiritual, but as a release. Because resentment ties you to the very thing you're trying to get free of, and I wanted to be free. And what surprised me was where the relief actually came from. Forgiveness wasn't a gift I was handing the other person. It was the thing that let me come back to myself. As long as I was holding the resentment, I was still tied to that old dynamic, still vibrating it. The moment I set it down, I wasn't carrying them around inside me anymore. That space came back to me, and it turned out that forgiving them was really how I started being kind to myself again. Now I've learned something about forgiveness, and I want to be clear about it, because it gets misunderstood. Forgiving someone doesn't mean reopening the door in the same way. You can forgive a person and still not walk back into the old pattern with them. You can understand exactly why someone is the way they are and still choose not to stand in that dynamic again. You can appreciate someone's humanity and still protect your own alignment. Compassion was never meant to be unlimited access. For me, forgiveness wasn't pretending nothing happened. It wasn't signing up for another round. It was finally putting down the identity I'd built inside that relationship. The exhausted explainer, the one who had to produce someone else's understanding before he could rest. And when I set that role down, something opened up. That's honestly the only way I can describe it. All the energy that had been tied up in trying to make one person see, it wasn't being spent that way anymore. It became available for something else. And not long after, the door opened to News for the Soul. This show, this microphone, this conversation, right now, with you. I don't think that was random. When I released the old role, my point of attraction changed. I wasn't standing in the same vibration of pressure and responsibility and quiet exhaustion anymore. So I became available for a different kind of conversation, a lighter one, a more open one, a voluntary one. Instead of trying to force one person to see, I was suddenly talking with people who actually wanted to look. People who were already reaching, people asking for clarity, ready for some part of this. And that is a completely different experience. I'm not here because I feel I owe anybody this. I'm here because I love it. I love watching someone catch sight of a pattern and suddenly have more room to move than they had a moment ago. That's the fun of it for me. That's the part that feels expansive. And I genuinely thought that meant the old pattern was finished. I really did. And then I had a dream. By this point, I'd launched Walk the Aligned Path. The radio show was happening, the podcast was happening, the direction of my life felt right. And I had evidence all around me that things were moving. People were responding, conversations were opening, and at the same time, honestly, the business hadn't fully landed in the way I wanted yet. The clients I felt called to work with hadn't all found their way to me yet. I didn't read that as failure. I read it as an in-between space. And those spaces are useful because they show you what's still active in you. And there's something worth saying about that wanting, because it's easy to misread. When I want the business to fully land, I think I want the clients, the bookings, the full schedule. But that's not really the thing I'm after. What I'm actually after is how I believe those things will make me feel useful, connected, of service, at ease. And here's the part that changes everything. That feeling isn't locked away inside the result. I don't have to wait for the schedule to fill before I'm allowed to feel it. I can reach for some of that feeling now. And when I do, I become more of a match for the very thing I'm asking for. The feeling was always the destination. The clients are just one of the ways it arrives. Now, I pay close attention to my dreams. When you're asleep, your resistance quiets down. The momentum of the day softens. And in that space, things can come through that your busy waking mind usually talks right over. So when I have a dream that lands with a certain weight, I take it seriously. And I had one. In the dream, people were looking for me. They were searching for what I offered. They were trying to find me, but they couldn't reach me. Not because they didn't exist, not because they weren't out there, They couldn't reach me because I wasn't yet a match for them. When I woke up, I knew that dream was showing me something. And as I sat with it, the meaning got very clear. It wasn't saying the people were missing. It was saying there was still something in me pushing against the very people I was asking for. And that stopped me. Because who comes to someone like me? People who are caught in a pattern they can't fully see yet. People carrying beliefs that feel like plain facts to them. People living in the same unwanted experience on repeat, not yet knowing what they're practicing. That's not a flaw in them. That's the whole reason this work exists. And there it was, the contradiction. I was asking to work with people who couldn't yet see certain patterns in themselves, while some old part of me felt irritated by a person who couldn't see. It still registered somewhere in me as a pressure, as responsibility, as why do I have to keep explaining this? That's a mixed signal. That's asking with one hand and pushing away with the other. And law of attraction isn't responding to how badly I want something. It's responding to whether I've become a match for it. Wanting it more doesn't move the needle. Becoming a match does. And this is where so many of us get quietly stuck. It's worth slowing down on. We ask for the relationship and brace against being vulnerable. We ask for success and tense up at the thought of being seen. We ask for more support and wave it away when it actually shows up. We ask for peace and keep rehearsing everything that's wrong. The desire is real, but there's resistance sitting right next to it. And the resistance usually doesn't announce itself as, I don't want this. It shows up as irritation, as impatience, as judgment, as a story about those people, as a tightening in your body before you've even had a chance to think. That dream showed me my version of it, and the moment I could see it, life did what life does. It handed me a chance to choose differently, and that chance came through the most ordinary moment you could imagine. Not long after that dream, I was guiding someone through something unfamiliar in another part of my working life. I'm going to keep the details general because, again, the specifics aren't the point. What happened inside me is the point. Here's the honest place I was standing in. I'd done so much work around this old pattern that most days it felt gone, genuinely gone. The weight of being the fixer, the resentment, the exhaustion, I'd softened so much of it that I more or less stopped thinking about it. But something didn't quite add up, because I was asking for more clients, more of this work, the business fully landing, and it hadn't fully landed yet. So somewhere there was still a gap, still something active in me I hadn't seen. And that's worth pausing on, because this is so often how it goes. When you ask for something with real desire, the first thing life shows you isn't always the thing itself. Sometimes the first thing it shows you is the last bit of resistance still standing between you and it, because you're finally ready to see it. That's not life withholding from you, that's life answering you. It's bringing the block up to the surface where you can finally soften it. And then the gap showed itself. Not everywhere. That's the part I really want you to hear. The pattern used to be the wallpaper of my whole life. It showed up with nearly everyone, in nearly every room. But by now, I'd cleaned up so much of that, it just wasn't running like that anymore. It wasn't getting tripped by anyone. Instead, life handed me one situation, one specific, almost exaggerated, too perfect to miss situation, as if the universe took that old pattern, concentrated it right down into a single moment, and held it up in front of me. Here's the last piece. Want to look at it? And because so much had already softened, the charge was tiny, nothing like the old days, just the smallest tinge of irritation, a flicker. But that's exactly why it mattered. I caught it almost instantly, not because I'm special, because I've been doing the work. I was aligned enough, open enough, to see the feeling instead of just becoming it. And catching it while it was still small was everything. It's the difference between turning the wheel and letting the old momentum grab it. This person was trying. They were showing up. They were asking questions. They weren't being difficult on purpose. But the thing we were working through just wasn't landing. I'd explain it. They'd nod. We'd move forward. And a few minutes later, we'd be right back at the same spot. The old version of me could have slid straight into the pattern. Why aren't you seeing this? I've already explained it. Why do I have to keep repeating myself? This should be obvious by now. And underneath that, the deeper, older track. I have to make them understand. If they don't understand, I haven't done my job. And if I can't get them there, what does that say about me? That was the wiring, and I felt it start to hum. Not dramatically. Nothing anyone else in the room would have noticed. My voice stayed calm. I was still engaged. I was still helping. But inside, I could feel the faint edge of that old familiar pressure. And this time, I caught it. That was the difference. Not that the feeling never came, that I caught it before it became the whole moment. And here's how I held it, because this matters. I didn't make the irritation wrong. I didn't shame myself for feeling it. I let it be what it was, information. It was showing me an expectation I was still carrying. That this person wouldn't understand, and that it was on me to get them there. But here's the line I keep close, and I'll give it to you too. Irritation can be information without becoming instruction. The feeling showed up. That didn't mean I had to act on it. I could read the message it was carrying without letting it run the moment. And then I caught something else. I caught the meaning I was about to hand the situation. Because the meaning wasn't only, they're not getting this. The deeper meaning was, if they don't get this, I haven't done enough. And deeper still, if I can't get them there, what will someone else think of me? That one was big. Because old patterns aren't always about the person right in front of you. Sometimes they're about the imagined audience, the person you picture watching. The one you think is keeping score on whether you handled it well enough. And in that moment, I saw that too. So I didn't just release the need to make this person understand. I released the need to prove to anyone that I could make them understand. And that was freedom, because now the interaction wasn't about my identity anymore. It wasn't about whether I was good enough at explaining. It wasn't about whether someone, somewhere, would decide I'd done my job right. It was just two people, in a moment, working with what was actually there. And from that place, a much better question was suddenly available. Not how do I force this to land, but what's actually needed here? That question changed everything. I didn't stay in the irritation. I didn't make them wrong. I didn't make their not getting it mean something about me. I stopped needing to be the answer for them. And the second I stopped needing them to see it my way, I could finally see what was right in front of me. They were trying. They were doing their best. This particular thing just wasn't in their natural wheelhouse. And once I could actually see that, I noticed something I'd been looking right past. They'd kept showing up. They kept asking. Even when it would have been easier to go quiet and pretend they understood, they were willing to feel a bit lost in front of another person. And anyone who's done that knows it isn't comfortable. That takes something. That deserves a little respect, not irritation. That doesn't make someone slow. It doesn't make them difficult. It means the approach needs to change. So I changed the approach. Instead of pushing the same explanation harder, I looked for another way in. And the result was better than I expected. They may not have understood it in the neat, tidy way my mind originally wanted them to, but we got the actual job done. The pressure dropped out of the room. It got easier, more collaborative, more human, and honestly, more fun. And that, right there, was the manifestation shift happening in real time. Here's what I mean. When my default is people can't see and I have to be the one to make them see, I keep meeting that exact reflection. I keep running into the version of people who can't see, and I keep feeling responsible for dragging them across the line. But when I set down the need to be that person, my point of attraction changes. And then I start meeting and noticing different versions of people. People who are trying, people doing the work, people who may not catch everything at once, but who can take something in when it's offered cleanly. That's a completely different experience to live inside. Same person, same situation, different focus, different feeling, different point of attraction. The old focus was, they can't see this, and I have to make them. The better feeling focus was, they're trying, and maybe there's another way in. That one shift opened the door. And here's where it tied straight back to the dream. The people I'm asking to work with, they come to me because they can't yet see something in themselves. That's the whole point. So if I'm still getting irritated by a person who can't yet see, I'm pushing against the exact thing my work is built on. That ordinary moment wasn't in the way of my business. It was the practice ground for it. It was me becoming a match to more of the people I keep asking to work with. Not by forcing it, but by softening towards the very thing I'd been resisting. The dream showed me the contradiction. That moment was where I got to soften it in real time. And that's the part I want you to carry into your own life. The person in front of you may not need to change first. The situation may not need to resolve first. You may not need to get the perfect response first. Sometimes the very first shift is just noticing what you're making it mean, because the meaning is so often where the whole pattern is living. Let me say the core distinction plainly, because it's the center of the whole episode. There's a difference between helping someone see and needing them to see. Helping is light, it's clean. You offer what you can see, as clearly and kindly as you know how, and then you let it be free. Free to land now, or later, or in its own way, or not at all. You stay open, you stay warm, but their understanding isn't the price of your peace. Needing is the heavy one. Needing is when their seeing it becomes a thing you're waiting on before you're allowed to feel okay. And the second that happens, you've handed your alignment across the table. Now you're not really helping them anymore. You're quietly asking them to regulate you by changing first. You can feel the difference in your body. Helping feels open, needing feels tight. And here's the kind part. You can care just as much from the light version, maybe more, because when you're not clenched around the outcome, you've actually got more to give. You can meet someone right where they are without getting stuck there with them. That contradiction I caught that day, asking with one hand while pushing away with the other. I didn't walk you all the way through it just so you'd know a little more about me. I walked you through it so you'd go looking for yours. Because you've got one too. We all do. There's something you keep asking for. More connection, more ease, more money, more time, more of the work you actually love. And somewhere, quietly, there's a piece of it you're pushing against. Not on purpose. You never choose it on purpose, but it's there. So let me show you where to look, because it hides in the same place mine did. It hides inside your irritation. And here's a clue worth holding on to. You don't get irritated by the things you don't care about. Those you walk right past. Irritation only rarely flares up near something you want. So when it shows up, it isn't just noise, it's a marker. It's pointing straight at the subject that matters to you, often the very subject you've been asking for. So think of the thing you most want more of, and then ask yourself a slightly uncomfortable question. What irritates me about the very thing I'm asking for? The parent who ached for a child, worn right down by the noise, the mess, the 100th question of the day. The person who wanted the bigger role, and feels their stomach drop every time more eyes turn their way. The one who asks for closeness, and pulls back the second someone actually gets close. The strong one, the capable one, quietly longing to be supported, who somehow can't let anyone carry a single thing. Same shape every time. The wanting is real, and right beside it, there's a brace, a tightening, a quiet, but not like this. That brace is the thing to catch. Now here's why this is so slippery, and why you can carry one of these for years and never once spot it. From the inside, it never feels like a contradiction. It feels like plain reality. It doesn't feel like I'm pushing against connection. It feels like this person is just too much. It doesn't feel like I'm resisting being seen. It feels like it isn't safe to be seen. It doesn't feel like I'm bracing against the very help I asked for. It feels like I should be able to do this on my own. The resistance always shows up wearing the mask of just the way things are, and we believe the mask every time. We don't experience it as something we're doing. We experience it as the simple truth of the situation. And that's the very thing we started this whole hour with. The meaning arrives so fast and feels so much like fact that we never stop to ask whether it's actually true or just well practiced. So here's the honest part, and I'll say it plainly. Your own contradiction is the single hardest one to see, because it isn't standing out in front of you. It's wearing your face. It feels like you. That's not a flaw in you. It's just the nature of the thing. The whole reason it gets to keep running is that it's tucked into your blind spot, the one place you can't look from where you're standing. And here's something that might sting a little. The people closest to you have probably caught a glimpse of it already. They may have even said something, once gently, and you had a perfectly good reason ready for why they had it wrong. That isn't them failing to understand you. That's a blind spot doing exactly what a blind spot does. It defends itself. It explains itself. It keeps the mask on. Which is exactly why sometimes you need it reflected back to you. Someone standing outside it, who can see the shape you can't quite see, and gently hold it up to the light, until you can finally catch the thing that's been quietly running the show. And when you do catch it, please hear this. It isn't bad news. It's the doorway. The contradiction you can't see just keeps running on its own, in the dark. But the moment you can see it, really see it, something has already shifted. You're not fully inside it anymore. You're standing a half step outside of it, looking at it. And you know that feeling when it happens. It's that small, quiet, oh, where something you've done 1,000 times suddenly looks different. Nothing outside of you has changed, but you have. And from there, for the very first time, you get a say. So that's your work for the rest of this hour, and honestly for the rest of your week. Not to fix anything, just to go looking. What's the one thing you keep asking for, and where's the small, quiet place you might be pushing it away? Find that, and you found the edge of something real. But what you can see, you can finally choose, and what you can't see just keeps choosing for you. Every situation holds both ends of the stick. There's always a wanted end and an unwanted end. The question is never whether the unwanted exists. Of course it does. The question is, which end am I focused on? And how does it feel when I look there? In that work moment, the unwanted was easy to find. The explanation wasn't landing. We were repeating ourselves. It was slower than I wanted. The old irritation, although small, was right there, available. But the wanted was available too. They were trying. They wanted to understand. There was another way to approach it. The goal could still be reached. Both ends were in the room the whole time. My only real choice was where to look. And that's the part we miss so often. We think we're reacting to reality, but a lot of the time, we're reacting to the end of the stick we happen to be focused on, and then we call that reality. That was my moment. Now let me give you a few that might be yours. Small, everyday ones. Someone doesn't text back. That's the event. The unwanted end says, they don't care. I shouldn't have opened up. This always happens. The wanted end might say, I actually don't know yet. They might just be busy. I don't have to build a whole story out of a silence. Same events, different end, different feeling, different point of attraction. Feedback arrives. That's the event. The unwanted end says, they think I'm not good enough. I need to defend myself. They're wrong. I'm being attacked. The wanted end might say, there might be something useful in here. I can listen first. I can keep what fits and leave the rest. Same event, different end. Something you want hasn't shown up yet. That's the subject. The unwanted end says, it's not working. Where is it? Why is it taking so long? Maybe I'm just not good enough. The wanted end might say, things are actually moving. I've got evidence of that. I'm becoming more of a match. I can appreciate what's already here. Same subject, different end of the stick. Now, this is not about pretending. Something feels bad, it feels bad. Don't paste a shiny sentence over a feeling you don't believe. That doesn't work. Because again, the universe isn't listening to the sentence, it's listening to what's underneath it. So the work is to find the better feeling thoughts you can actually reach from where you're standing. Maybe, I don't know the whole story yet. Maybe they're trying. Maybe this doesn't mean what I think it means. Maybe I can take a breath before I respond. That's enough. A slightly better feeling thought turns the train, and once the momentum starts moving towards the wanted end, life starts reflecting that back to you. Here's one more, because it's the one closest to my own story. Someone needs your help more than once. They don't get it the first time or the second. That's the event. The unwanted end says, they're not trying. Why is this on me? I've done this already. The wanted end might say, they're still here. They still want this. And there's probably another way in. And notice, in that example, the person didn't have to change at all. They were exactly the same. The only thing that moved was where I put my focus. That's the whole game. Not the situation changing, just which end of the stick I'm looking at. And while we're here, let me name something about irritation itself. Because for some of us, it's doing more than it looks like it's doing. If you've ever been the capable one, the fixer, the mediator, the one people leaned on to sort things out, your irritation might not be about the moment in front of you at all. Not really. Sometimes it's old responsibility still switched on. A part of you that learned a long time ago that other people's understanding was your job. That if they didn't get it, you hadn't done enough. That the tension in the room was always yours to fix. So when someone in front of you now doesn't see something, that old wiring fires. I have to get them there. It's on me. And it comes out as a flash of irritation pointed at them, when really it's an old weight you've been carrying for years, asking to finally be set down. You don't have to act on it. That's the whole point. You can feel it, recognize what it actually is. Oh, that's the old responsibility. This isn't really about the person in front of me. And let it move through. That's the same principle from the work moment. You can notice the message without handing it the steering wheel. Now, one honest caution. If a subject is too raw to find a better feeling thought on, if every direction you reach hurts, don't force it. In that moment, the kindest thing you can do is gently change the subject entirely. Put it down. Go find relief somewhere easier. A different thought. A good memory. A view out of the window that feels better. And let yourself off the hook for now. That's not avoidance. That's being kind to yourself. And here's the thing. You don't build this on the heavy stuff anyway. You start small. You pick the light subjects, the ones with little resistance on them, and you practice there. You reach for the slightly better feeling thoughts on something easy, and you let it actually land. Do that enough times and something begins to build. Trust. Belief. A quiet expectation that this works, because you've watched it work. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to go hunting for the heavy stuff. As that good feeling builds, you'll be guided to the next thing, and the next. It's called the path of least resistance, and your guidance system runs it for you. One subject appears, then the next. And over time, you may find yourself softening things that once looked impossible, and they don't quite feel as impossible anymore. The more you focus that way, the more consistently you're in alignment, and the more clearly you'll see your guidance, hear it, and act on it. It's a natural cycle, one that keeps giving back to itself. So here's the simple frame to carry. What pleases you is showing you where you are already aligned. What irritates you is showing you where something's ready to be softened. Neither one is a punishment. Neither one means you're getting it wrong. They're both just information. One says, keep going. The other says, there's something here to look at. Let's make this something you can actually use, because it's not just an idea to understand, it's a practice. 4 simple steps. Notice, check, reach, choose. Notice the reaction, check the focus, reach for what else is true. Choose from there. Let's walk through it together. Bring to mind a recent moment that had a little charge on it. Not the biggest wound of your life, not something overwhelming, just a normal, human moment. A message that went unanswered, a piece of feedback that stung, a conversation where someone didn't get you, a moment you felt irritated or dismissed or responsible. Have one? Take a breath. Let it come into focus. No rush. Step 1. Notice. What was the very first reaction? Not the cleaned up version, the real one. Maybe it was, here we go again, or they never listen, or I have to fix this, or I'm being judged. Just notice it, and don't make a new problem out of having had the reaction. The reaction is information. It's showing you what your expectation on that subject actually is. And I want you to slow down right here, because this is the piece I don't want you to miss. Your expectation isn't always the thing you say you believe. Your expectation is often revealed by the thing you brace for. The meaning you jump to, the outcome you assume is coming next. So if someone goes quiet and your stomach tightens, look at what you assumed. Did you assume they're upset? That you said too much? That rejection's on its way? If someone needs something explained again and irritation arises, look there too. Did you assume they weren't trying? That it was suddenly your job to get them there? That's your expectation, showing itself, not as a tidy belief, as a reaction. And law of attraction responds to what's actually active. So this reaction is a gift. It's showing you your current point of attraction, and once you can see it, you can shift it. Step 2, check. What were you focused on, and how did it feel? Were you focused on what was missing, what they weren't doing, what it might mean about you? Were you on the wanted end of the stick or the unwanted end? No blame here, just honesty, because you can't shift something you're pretending not to feel. And ask yourself one clean question. Is this meaning actually true, or is it just familiar? Because familiar isn't the same as true. Sometimes familiar just means you've practiced it a long time. Step 3, reach. Reach for what else is also true. Not a fantasy, not a forced affirmation, something real, something you can actually feel. If they didn't reply, maybe what else is true is, I don't know why yet. If they didn't understand, maybe they need a different way in. If you got feedback, maybe there could be one useful thing in here, even if I don't agree with all of it. If something hasn't arrived, maybe I've got real evidence things are moving. And if you're feeling responsible for someone else's understanding, maybe they have their own inner being and their own guidance, and their timing isn't mine to force. You're not trying to leap from irritation to bliss in one jump. You're just reaching for the next better feeling thought that's genuinely within reach. And if the best you can reach is, I don't have to figure this out this second, that counts. That's a real step. You're not climbing the whole staircase at once. You're just taking the next stair. One stair at a time is how the whole thing gets walked. Step 4, choose. Once you're even a little steadier, choose from there. Maybe the choice is to explain it another way. Maybe it's to stop explaining. Maybe it's to ask a better question, or take a breath before you respond, or say no, or do nothing for now. Aligned action doesn't always look soft. Sometimes alignment is very clear and very firm. Sometimes it's kind. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a clean no. The point isn't what the choice looks like from the outside. The point is the state you were choosing from. Pressure makes one kind of choice. Alignment makes another, and you can feel the difference. Let me run my own moment through it so you can hear it in motion. I notice the irritation starting to rise, small, but there. I check the focus. They're not getting it, and I have to make them. That felt heavy, pressured, the unwanted end. I reach for what else was true. They're trying, they're showing up. Maybe there's another way in, and their understanding is not my identity. And then I changed the approach, and the whole interaction shifted. That's the work. It's not complicated, but it does ask for honesty. Because if you never notice the focus, you'll keep calling the reflection reality and reacting to it like you've got no choice. But you do have a choice. Not over what everyone else does, not over their timing, but over your focus, your meaning, your vibration, your response. And remember, you already do this in the easy parts of your life. You run this whole process without even noticing. Something small goes sideways on a subject you feel good about, and you barely flinch. You assume it'll work out, so you let it go. This practice is just taking that same skill, one you already have, and bringing it to the places that have needed it for a long time. And that is more than enough to change your point of attraction. Before we close, let me give you a simple way to fold this into your days. If you've already started the free 30-day practice, keep going. If you haven't, you can begin anytime. The foundation is simple. In the morning, before the world gets into your head, give yourself a little time to line up. Meditate. Listen to something that lifts you. Watch something that helps you feel good. Set your tone before the day pulls you in. If you only ever do one thing, start there. Start with the morning. Let it prove itself to you. And then when you're ready for the next piece, add this. Not every pattern, not your whole life at once. Just one moment a day, one light subject, one reaction you can actually work with. When something stirs you up, pause and run it through. What am I making this mean? Is that true or just familiar? What else is also true here? And where is the wanted end on this? That's it. One moment a day. You don't have to go hunting for the material. Life will bring you plenty. When the moment comes, notice, check, reach, choose. And if you catch it late, that's fine. If you catch it 3 hours later, fine. The next day, still useful. Catching it late beats never seeing it at all. And with practice, you'll catch it sooner. That's how the pattern changes. You're not trying to become someone who never reacts. You're becoming someone who notices the reaction before it turns into the whole story. And that's a massive shift. Because in my life, the old story was, people can't see, and I have to make them. That story ran on pressure. It ran me into exhaustion. And it kept handing me the exact reflection that matched it. The new focus is different. People have their own inner being, their own timing. They're usually doing the best they can from where they are. I can offer what I see cleanly and let it be free to land or not. I can enjoy the people who are ready. I can appreciate the ones doing the work. I can change my approach when it feels right. And I don't have to carry anyone else's understanding as my job. That feels clean. That feels like alignment. And from there, the work is fun again. The conversations get lighter. The right people find me, and they can actually take in what I'm offering, because I'm not carrying the old pressure into the room with me. So as you move through your week, watch the meanings. Watch the moments where your mind decides too fast. Watch the places where irritation might really be old responsibility in disguise. And watch where you might be asking for something while quietly pushing against a piece of receiving it. When you catch it, and you will, don't turn it into one more reason to be hard on yourself. Just turn. Reach for the wanted end. Find the thought with a little more room in it, and let that be the start of a new point of attraction. And please hear this, because I think a lot of us need it. You're not behind. You're not getting this wrong. There's nothing to catch up on. You're just becoming more aware than you used to be. And awareness is the whole beginning. Everything good starts there. And if there's a pattern in your life that you keep seeing but can't quite seem to interrupt on your own, that's exactly the kind of thing we can look at together. There's no pressure in that. Just an open door, there for you whenever the timing feels right. You've been listening to The Aligned Path with Glenn Pankhurst, here on News for the Soul. I'm here the last Thursday of every month, same time, so I'll see you back here then. If something in this hour landed for you, there's more waiting whenever you're ready. Head to walkthealignedpath.com. That's where you'll find the episode links, the resources, and the free 30-day practice, a simple, grounded place to start putting this work into your own life. And if you'd like to go deeper with support shaped around you, you can book a one-to-one alignment session there too. Or if you're not sure yet, start with a free discovery call and see whether working together feels right. No pressure, no big promises, just an honest invitation, here for you when the timing feels right. I'm Glenn Pankhurst. Take good care, and I'll meet you again on the Aligned Path.